So I went to your event the other night, which was, it's called Hear My Song,
Hear
right?
My Song, yep.
Hear My Song,
Mm-hmm.
which was just a beautiful event in a beautiful church in Morristown, New Jersey. And I just was moved beyond words with what went on that night. So I'm hoping you'll be able to tell us a little bit more about that. And also just in general, what is Hear My Song? Who are you and what is Hear My Song? And kind of like, you know, what's your story? How did you get started?
Well, how Hear My Song started is, well, when I found out about the Pulse shootings in Orlando, I was really devastated by it. And I was, at the same time, I kind of realized something that I didn't realize before, which was that all the, a lot of people I feel bark on social media about things that they care about, but that kind of brought something in me where I'm like, well, what is me saying a prayer on Facebook for these people going to do for them? As much as like my heart's in the right place, as much as my, my heart was going out to them, I did feel bad, but at the same time, it's like, what am I even doing about it? There's nothing I'm doing about it. And, of course, like I went to my boyfriend, I'm like, we should donate money. And he was like, yeah, we have no money. And I was like, so I was like, what could I do? And, the one thing that, because I studied music theater in college, and I have put on several cabarets, but I've never put on a benefit concert.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of thought about, like how Broadway does Broadway Bears for, to fight HIV and AIDS, and how like people do put on personal concerts to like support a cause. So I was like, we could do that. I put on shows all the time. Like I could definitely put this together. So I reached out to my theater network of people. So my friends, Matt and Danielle, I reached out to first because Matt is a music director. And I was like, we need a piano player. That's like number one. And Danielle is a great singer. So I was like, great, she'll be great too. And then I just sent out this mass message on Facebook to everybody I knew that I've done theater with. And I was like, we want to put on the show. We would probably be putting it up in like 3 weeks. Like, who wants to do it? And everybody said yes. Everybody came back and said yes. We rehearsed like 3 times, and that was the first show last year. And we did it at this tiny black box theater in Morris Community College, CCM. The director there let us use the black box for one night at no charge. And maybe 30 people came out because we had 3 weeks to like put it on and tell everybody it was happening. But even 30 people came and we still raised $450. And we knew it was small. We knew, because we did it in such a short amount of time. But then we were like, maybe we should keep like at dinner after the show. We were on a high. We felt so good. And we were like, maybe we should do this every year. And we should find people to support beyond, just the OneOrlando Foundation that we sent the money to. And then this year happened. Mm-hmm. And the big catalyst of helping was my friend Steve Bowden. He's worked with nonprofits before. He's went to business school. Like he knows marketing, and he wanted to help us. And he just like blew, like I thought I have good theater networks. He has good like business networks. So he got so many extra things donated to us, like our posters. He helped me set up our website, we're calling LGBT Voices, because eventually if we want to go down the nonprofit route, that's what it's going to be called. And then the Hear My Song is going to be the yearly concert. So he helped me set up the website. He helped me set up the Facebook page. He started posting on the Facebook page for me because I don't know anything about marketing. And he was like, I'll take care of everything. And and then he found Rain Foundation for us to donate to. I mean, he really was like the catalyst that sent it to how good it was this year. And of course, like I was more of on the creative where I put the concert, like the songs together and I did what I usually do best. But me and Steve were like the dream team this year. And we were so excited that it came off so well.
So can you tell us about, I guess, so right now it's Hear My Song, and it's a benefit concert that you do once a year, right?
Yeah, once a year during Pride Month. During
Pride Month, right. And you're New Jersey based, and so you focus on New Jersey at this point.
Yes.
And then LGBT Voices, which I know is your website, is that what your overarching kind of organization, or?
Yes, that's what the actual organization is called. The yearly concert's going to be Hear My Song, but then we're really hoping to start more creative outlets for the LGBT community, whether it be putting on slam poetry nights, like writing nights where people come in and get to read out loud to an audience what they've been writing, whether they're working on a short story, a novel, to get that out there, or poetry. And all the events where we're planning would be like donation events. So to get in, you can donate to whatever cause we're doing. And then people of the LGBT community will still have a creative outlet to get their work out there, to get their word out there, whatever they'd like.
Mm-hmm.
'Cause that was kind of what I see doesn't really happen a lot, where it's LGBT focused. Like, of course, they have slam poetry nights and readings and things like that, but I wanted it to be really LGBT focused, because I feel like getting stories out there and getting their word out there and their work and their art would really bring in more allies, and it would show people that they're really not that different than anybody else. Because I feel like that's usually what I get when people ask me like why I fight so hard, even though I'm not in the community. And I'm like, because I want everyone to be like me and see that there absolutely is no difference. And I feel like art is the best way to get most people to understand that and feel that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. One of the things that in my program that I tell people is focus on your own community first. There are a lot of people who kind of have an idea of, I want to do something and I want to help this community that they don't know. Like they don't, they, for whatever reason, if they just feel like they're supposed to help the less fortunate, or, whatever, there's a bunch of, I won't even get into that because there's a bunch of terms and stuff that yeah. Anyway, so tell me a little bit about your experience with the LGBT community, because as you said, you're not, well, as you said, you're not part of it, but it seems like you're part of it. You're definitely an ally, but tell me a little bit why this issue and why it spoke to you.
It's this issue, I feel, because I grew up in the music theater community, which it has always been kind of, especially in towns where it's not necessarily okay to be just completely out and open. I feel like the music theater community was always that place for young people to be out and open before they really stepped into the big world of being out and open. I felt so a lot of my friends were struggling with coming out to their parents, struggling with whether or not they want to come out publicly in high school yet. And it's still even poured into college. When I went to college for theater, I mean, some of these kids were homeschooled and didn't really have an outlet, and people were being sent to conversion therapy. And I just heard all of these things, and I was just like, I can't believe that this is happening. Like, so like I've always been surrounded by the LGBT community through what my passion is, which is music theater. And I feel like I've never wasn't a part of it because I started theater at such an early age. And I always had an understanding of that. My parents actually, when I found out later in life, my mom especially was an ally before it was even cool. They went to this church when I was a kid, and there was a gay couple that went to the church that wasn't allowed to tell people they were a couple. And when people found out they were a couple, they got kicked out of the church. And my mom left the church. She took us and left the parish because of that. And when I found out that story, that really inspired me too. Like, I was like, wow, like even my mom back in the day before, like, and she had nobody on her side. People thought she was crazy for leaving because of that. Like, it's not that big a deal, like all they had to do was not tell anybody who they were, like,
like that's not a big deal at all.
Not a big deal, but that's like the reaction she got, which I'm like, wow, like that's even harder to go against that than, like, not saying that we're completely perfect, but it's a little better now in the sense of social media. There's so many people to connect with. My mom didn't really know anybody or had anybody, and she just did it on her own accord, which is pretty incredible. But yeah, I had very open parents too. I mean, they were not biased in any sort of way, and that was a blessing. I kind of, me and my sister have this joke because my parents, we could have come home with anybody. We could have come home with somebody that was a different race, different, same gender, different gender. It could have been anybody, and we both ended up with Catholic white men. So we made this joke that we should have rented out our parents to the struggling people
that needed it. Yeah.
Because they were so open and like so willing to accept anybody into our lives,
It helps. It definitely helps to have parents like that. That's for sure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I feel like, but at the same time, because they were so open like that, it created me and my sister to be open.
Okay.
So, it was, it's when we were kids, we didn't understand that. And we were like, oh, we should rent out our parents, but now that we're older, we're like, wow, they created more people in the world like them that were open and honest and, didn't care how anybody would live their lives. Yep.
That's good. Good parents. Yay. Yay, mom and dad. So when you started with this idea, you talked about, you just kind of reached out to your social network and, but then after that, after, your close friends were like, yeah, we'll help you. It's kind of turned into a big deal. And I think next year it's going to be even a bigger deal. Right. I don't know how many people you had there the other night, but it was, it was a church full.
Oh yeah, church full. It was a good crowd. I mean, the mayor came out. Yeah,
that was great.
That was like, oh, I couldn't believe it. It was.
So what were the first, besides reaching out to your social network and stuff like that, how did you know what steps to take, or how did you kind of figure out what to do? I mean, you said you had experience putting on shows before, but this maybe was a little bit different, or no?
It was definitely more personal in a sense. The other concerts I would put on, because I was more of a comedic person, they were comedy, music concerts. So this was totally different. I didn't want it to be a comedy.
You see why?
Yeah, because I wanted people. But like, really, what it starts out with when you're putting on a concert is, what is the theme? Like, what are you trying to say? And the first year, when somebody asked me, what are you trying to say? I said, I want people to know that there are people who are here and that love them. I want people to know that they are supported and that that we're here for them, and that people care, even people in New Jersey care. And that was what I wanted to say. So once I knew my theme, I wrote out, I think, 3 pages worth of songs that I knew that could have been good in the theme. Of course, we weren't going to perform them all. It was like 40 songs. But once we started finding out who was in it, we realized, oh, this person would sound great singing that song. But I also asked the performers too. I'm like, what song would you want to sing that tells, you know, how you're feeling right now? So we got kind of ideas from there, ideas from the list, and we started going down and trying. And the hardest part is the order, because you want the order of the songs and people speaking to not only be entertaining, but be powerfully messaged, and in the right time frame. Because I think, the first year we didn't have an intermission because we didn't want to put on that many songs because we only had 3 weeks. So I think we only performed like 10 to 12 songs. So we didn't have an intermission, and we also didn't have stories last year. It was just songs. We had my friend Colleen, who hosted this year. She did host, and had some small speaking interludes, but it wasn't like the long stories like we had this year, which I think made it 10 times better. But the first year it was, and just trying to get a flow of like, and the big thing too was really hard. We had, out of those 40 songs, at least 30 of them were ballads. And we were like, we can't just have sad ballad after sad ballad. Everyone's just going to get sad by the end of the night. Mm-hmm. So like also trying to work in up-tempo songs, but still have a good message. So like we sang Freak Flag from Shrek the Musical, which is a big song about letting your freak flag fly, but that's uplifting, but still in the message of like, So, and then once we had the list together, we were like, okay, let's rehearse. And I mean, both shows, we did not have a full rehearsal with everybody until the day of the show. But most of the stuff is solos and duets that they kind of rehearsed on their own. And then we just, the day of, came together and just ran through the whole show and see how it went. Mm-hmm. And luckily, both years it went really well. The image in my head came out on stage and I was like, whew, thank God. I'm trying to think of like what else was like really crucial in like the planning process.
What was the really hard part for you?
The hard part for me, a part that I don't know if it was really a hard part, but a hard balance is like, I didn't want this to be Rowland presents Hear My Song. I wanted it to be an entire group effort. Even though it was my idea, it was one of those things that I felt it was really important to listen to my friends in the community and then push out what I feel like they want to hear and they want to produce, and take a step back and let them tell what they want to tell. Mm-hmm. So in the first one and the second one, I sang a solo, but I really didn't want to be in every single number. Right. And it was hard in a sense of like, when people drop out, it's like, oh, Lauren, do you want to jump in? And I'm like, I don't want this to be the me show, So I even think next year I'm even taking a farther step back from actually performing and letting everybody else have their word and have their song to sing or their story to tell. so like the first year it was a hard balance of like, you know, I know that I could do it, but it's not really about me. So let me put other people in and like, you know, navigate it to make it even for everybody, that everybody gets a fair little like line, like spot in the light, you know, and everyone gets their own thing. And it was hard. Yeah, I guess it was hard to take all of these stories and ideas and put them into a cohesive, flowing show that wasn't all over the place.
Right.
That was very hard, especially because a lot of the stories that people were telling, I had never heard them tell before. Because I felt a little bad in rehearsals being like, okay, tell me your deepest, darkest secret and let me tell you if it's good for entertainment, you know? Like,
okay.
you know, I didn't want to put that on people. So they gave me the gist of what their story was about so that I could put the order. So like when like Finn, who started the second act, he had like the longest speech. I mean, he flew out from San Francisco to be there. I was so honored for him to be there. I just knew when he told me the gist of his story, I just knew that my friend Nick singing the next song, I'm Here, would be such a nice cap to that story.
Yeah.
And that's what I really was focusing on this year, was finding a song that really suited the story that was right before it, and then having some song and then a story and then the songs that kind of like flowed into it so that people would understand that how the stories mix in with the songs. And it's a very delicate balance.
Yeah, and I think you did it really well. And I would agree that the stories, I didn't see the show last year, but this year the stories really, really brought the message home. And I mean, I'm a little biased because I love personal storytelling. But I think it flowed incredibly well, and just you know, even if somebody had kind of walked in and not knowing what Hear My Song was about, I think they would have gotten the message just by watching the show.
Yeah, and it was tough, but it worked out really well. And actually the first concert, even Steve saw it last year, but he wasn't involved last year. He saw it and he described it as very cathartic, which is kind of what the message was just like an outpouring of love. So it was just like this love song after inspiration song after love song after inspiration song. It was just like a burst of emotion. Whereas this year it was more controlled and more of like, we really want a message here to be said. And we want people to understand what we're saying through these stories.
So when I left the concert and I walked out into the parking garage and in an elevator full of people who had been in Morristown having dinner or partying, or it wasn't that late, so they weren't partying too hard, but I seriously was just like, wait, I felt like I just walked into a different world. Like I felt like I came from this very loving world into the real world, and I was just like, oh, this is weird and surreal. So what? It leads me to a question, you know, what do you hope people do after the show? You know, do you have a vision for that, or?
Steve and I were both talking about that, and we both really felt like, you know, we want to create more allies that really do stand up for the community themselves, and realize that we do have a really hard road to trek, because they see everything in the media of, oh, gay marriage is legal, it's over, you know, or, oh, you know, Laverne Cox is on TV, the trans problem is over, you know, and they don't realize that how much suffering and how much pain had to go through it just to even get to there, and how much, like, how farther the road is to go. And I think because it's like we're in a world of like a lot of media and a lot of images out there, like they don't realize that a regular trans person still doesn't have like any of what they need. Like they have to fear going to the bathroom, for God's sakes, the freaking bathroom. Like, like that to me just like boggles my mind. It's like, do you know how hard it is to not be able to go to the bathroom somewhere? Like, just imagine that in your thought that you can't go to the bathroom somewhere. It's like, without fearing for your life or fearing that somebody's going to yell at you, or it's insane to me. And it's like, but they don't see that because they go, oh, there's trans people on TV. That means that trans people are accepted now.
Mm-hmm.
And it's
Right.
like, no, that's not it at all. You know, like, and that's why we were like, we're really pushing for these personal stories, because we want people to realize that there's real fear and real danger out there for a lot of people in the LGBT community still, especially the trans community, and especially the LGBT community of color. It's like, and they even have a harder struggle because they have to, on top of the LGBT oppression, they have the racism. And it's like, you know, there's still all these things that are happening and that I feel like a lot of people don't realize. And we're trying to just get them to realize that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really what our mission is to create more allies into the community, people who really want to support the community.
And so along those lines, do you have for next year, or if for your future activities, have you thought about how Hear My Voice can be, I guess, represent more diversity? And quite sure how to say that without sounding like it's not already, but yeah.
Yeah, no, because we actually, when we were doing the concert this year, we realized we didn't give ourselves enough time to find more people, more diversity. So next year we're like planning on trying to recruit people by January, because we want to find more diverse people. We want to find, you know, because really we really could only find what was in our direct network. But we even spoke to Rain, and we wanted some of their people to speak that like live there at the shelter.
Can you talk, not to interrupt you, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done that, but Rain is from what I understand, the first LGBT shelter in New Jersey. That's correct, right?
Yes, in the state of New Jersey. They're in Essex County. Their shelter houses about, I believe, 12 people, and they like rotate. And it's really more of, instead of being a homeless shelter, I really was inspired by them because they're really like focused on rehabilitation, in the sense of, you know, finding them work, finding them a permanent place to live. Like really, they're really focused on actually getting people up on their feet.
Mm-hmm.
And I really was inspired by that. But at the same time, providing them like such a nice, like warm home for them to live in. You know, they're not shoved in the corner on a cot with a blanket with 1,000 people in the room. They're really getting their own personal space, which I believe for some of them might even be the first time that they've had something like that. Their own space to themselves, like their own bed, their own, you know, belongings. It's all in one place. They don't have to worry about like place to place, like couch surfing or anything like that. And I was really inspired by that. And of course, I think she's like mentioned that it's hard for them to leave because they make such a nice warm environment for them. But I think that's still important, that they really get to feel like people in their own place, and in and they really focus on truly trying to help them lead great lives for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And that to me, Like I was almost in tears like the whole time, the first time I met them, which I barely said anything to them because I was like, if I say something, I'm just gonna burst out crying like a crazy person. But really, like it really inspired me what they were doing. I want to support them like every year.
How did you find them? Or how did you get it connected to Elaine is the woman's name who started it, right? Mm-hmm.
Yes, Elaine, yes. Steve was doing a lot of research because I told him
Steve is your
partner. Yeah,
partner.
My work partner. He was doing a lot of research about because we were like, where should we donate to this year? And he was like, I'll do some research. And he happened upon them and he reached out to them and started the conversation. And and then he was like, yeah, like, are you free this day? We can actually go meet them and go to the shelter. And we met them together. And I think, it was really like a Google search.
Okay. Hey, Google comes through.
Came through and found and connected us to them because we were really looking for a place that was doing good work.
Yeah.
Not just a place that funnels money to other places.
Okay.
Not that those organizations are bad. It's just we really wanted to do something for like the small, like a small, hardworking people. Mm-hmm. And we felt like they were just doing something way beyond anything like that we could think of for, how small they are and how like how much they could use the funds and use the money. They're amazing people.
Yeah. And so you donated just to explain again how Hear My Song works. You have a benefit concert and then you choose an organization each year to donate the money that you raise through the concert, right?
Yep. And we really try to focus more on small nonprofits mm-hmm. and people who are really in there doing the work.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I imagine also because, at this point, you're not donating millions of dollars. Hopefully someday you will be, if in a smaller organization, that chunk of money that you're giving them can actually make a fairly decent difference as opposed to, a bigger organization where it won't.
Exactly. Yeah, because we figured, we're new, we're not going to be sending them thousands and millions of dollars. So let's find a place that could use that $800 that we're going to make for them.
Yeah, yeah. That's great. Mm-hmm. So what have you learned about yourself in this whole process?
A lot. Well, because I was it was crazy to me when Steve started talking to me about this year's concert and agreed to help me because I was working at a full-time job at a retail store. I was the assistant manager, which was incredible because I managed to get an assistant managing position pretty fast. Mm-hmm. So like I was kind of rising up very quickly. But like I literally hated going to work every day. I know. It's like, but like I had just left a job at the restaurant that I didn't like. I was working 2 jobs. I was working at the restaurant. I was working at a liquor store and felt, like nothing was going anywhere. So I'm like, maybe I should go on this career path in retail. So I kind of went on the career path and I was just like, because they're all talking about numbers, they're talking about sales and growth, about the company and blah, blah, blah. And I realized I was like, I literally couldn't care less about anything they're talking about. Like I went to this like managers meeting and they're talking about all this great stuff and everyone's so excited. Like, everyone who's working there who really like loves what they do. We're so excited. All the managers were like, yeah, let's beat our goals this year, blah, blah, blah. And I'm sitting there like, I can't care about this. I was like, and I was, So I left my job there and went back to the restaurant. And I mean, I like cried for like 3 days because I was like, I can't have a career, but I can't keep working at a restaurant the rest of my life. You know, it pays the bills, but I can't save any money. You know, I'm like, what am I going to do with myself? And when Steve started helping me, and I was in a pretty bad bout of depression at the time, because I do suffer from depression and anxiety. When Steve started helping me, you know, he was like, oh, can you write this email to this person? And I'm like, oh, like, I don't want to write an email. Cause you know, I'm like, I'm in this, you know, pity party for myself. That's what I call it. But the more I started writing emails and being like writing official emails to people and reaching out to people, asking them to join this thing in the concert, if people can rehearse at this time, and like started really getting into it, I was like, I started like the depression was slowly like lifting itself off of me again. And then by the time the concert was coming around, I like looked around and I'm like, how those people felt about the quarterly numbers in retail
Yeah.
is how I'm feeling about this concert right now.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I couldn't be more thrilled. And I'm like, and at the same time though, I said the joke in my head of like, oh, I wish it would pay me though. but I realized, I'm like, I don't care if I don't get paid. I don't care if this never brings me a cent in my life. What I'm doing makes me feel so much better about myself. It makes me feel like I'm really doing something. I'm really doing something that can help people and can inspire people. And I was like, that's what I want to do with my life. So working at a restaurant the rest of my life to support that would honestly be worth it.
Yeah, it's passion projects don't always pay, and
Yeah.
but they don't always not pay either. There's a bug flying around my face, sorry.
Oh, it's okay.
They don't always not pay. In the beginning, yeah, of course, it's hard, and but you know, as you grow, as you figure out where you want to take hear my voice, hear my song, as you figure out whether you want to offer all these other things, and your legal structure, if you want to become a nonprofit or a social enterprise, or you know,
we are thinking about it. We're trying to strategize what we're gonna do, because I don't want to. I told Steve, I don't have any experience in business. I went to music school. So I told him, and he's going to law school next year.
okay.
So I'm like, maybe it's not the best time for us to become a super big nonprofit thing. Cause I would have to he would have to run it from DC with me here in Jersey. And I'm like, and I have no experience with it. So I was like, you would have to be coaching me from DC on how to create this business, because I don't want to create it and for it to fail. So we're kind of strategizing right now what would be the best time to become official, like an official nonprofit, or I don't even really know what the other routes would be yet, because Steve would know better than I.
Yeah, I mean, it's a perfect example of, you know, you figure out what you're good at, and you don't have to, I mean, you have to learn some of that other stuff, but there are other people that are really good at that stuff.
Yeah.
And if it's, you know, Steve, if he goes off and has to focus on law school, there's somebody else that will be able to help you. Yeah. So, and we can also talk offline, because I definitely can give you some information on what your next steps could be, and all of that. But you also don't have to figure it out. Like, you don't have to take it to anything but being a concert once a year. And that's, you know, that's a great thing too.
Yeah. I mean, that's the kind of strategizing we're working on right now, is seeing what we could do. Steve even mentioned like having the concert be a blueprint, and so that we could have other people in other places start doing a Hear My Song concert.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Yeah.
And I was like, that would be really great, you know, having different creative people putting on different concerts, because I mean, it's great to have my message out there, but plenty other people could come up with probably bigger and better things than I could, and it could, you know, be really helpful in communities. And everybody, I told him too, I was like, everybody loves a show. I was like, everybody loves people singing. Everybody loves, you know, good entertainment. And if you could really just wallop that message in there with the entertainment, it could really spark change in people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you could even develop some sort of curriculum or model for gay straight alliances in schools, and you know, go that route, which would be fundable.
Yeah.
Not to start talking about fundraising, but again, we could talk about that offline sometime.
But yeah, it's like, and going back to like what I learned about myself was, you know, I told my mom the day after the concert, like, that concert day was the first time, well, it was like one of the most recent times that I've felt very fulfilled in my life, because I was a music theater performer. Like, in high school, I was a music theater performer. In college, I was a music theater performer. And then when I got home from college and my career basically bombed and went nowhere for performing, I realized in my 20s, I had no idea who I was without performing. So, like, everyone knew me as the singer. And if I wasn't singing in my life, like, I felt like my life was becoming purposeless. And this concert really, like for the first time on that Saturday, I felt like, wow, my life can have a purpose, even if it's not me shining in the light of me being the performer, me being the star. You know, I don't have to be the star of this show to feel completely fulfilled. And that was very, like, life-changing for me, I would say.
I love that. I love what you're learning. I love that you're learning about yourself, and that you're finding ways to use your talents to help others, but also just to help yourself and to feel better about your life and your path. I imagine I'm not a performer, or I'm not a music person, but I imagine it's got to be very hard when you love something so much, but it's really hard to make it big, as they say.
Yeah. I mean, it's, you know, it's because it was just drilled in me from such a young age, because everybody saw I had such a talent for it. And, you know, I'm actually even thinking about applying to start directing musicals in high school, so that I can be that person that I needed to tell me, like, you know, you should shoot for the stars, but if it doesn't happen for you, there are so many other stars to shoot for that isn't starring on Broadway. I mean, if you're starring on Broadway, great. But there are many of people who do not get that chance, and that really strive for that chance. And there's just a lot of other rewarding things you can do in your life. And I didn't get that message when I was younger.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're teaching yourself that lesson. You're teaching yourself the lesson. Yeah.
Yeah. And I feel like directing in high schools would actually be good for me, because I love doing it. And I feel like I would have a lot to teach the kids in the schools who are pursuing, you know, theater and pursuing their dreams, because and tell them it is a really hard, delicate balance of shooting for the stars, but also knowing your own limitations. It is a very rough road.
Yeah.
And, you know.
Right. You know, and I was thinking, like, the other thing I was thinking too is, I know in Ringwood, I think last time I heard, they were cutting the arts programs out of the schools. And so it's almost like, you know, your Hear My Song could become, again, something that's taken into the schools. So combining your interest in working with, in high school musicals, music programs and, you know, what you're doing with Hear My Song. So it's, you know, I think this is what I love about this kind of thing. You start with just a small goal, and then as you learn, and it develops into something bigger, and you just don't really know where that path is going to take you.
Yeah. And I'm realizing I'm like trying to let go of the reins of the path, because I'm like, the path is going to be the path. You know, you can't guide the path like where you want it to be, you know, like
yeah,
I'm
that's
trying to like let loose a bit, because I am kind of a control freak. So I'm like trying to let loose and just let it be what it's going to be, while still being like passionate about the direction I want it to be in, but being a little more open about where it could go, instead of like, you know.
yeah, I love that. Yeah, no, I can definitely relate to that at this point in my life. Yeah. Well, thank you so much. This has been wonderful. And people can find you at lgbtvoices.com. Is that correct? Okay. And then Hear My Song on Facebook.
Yep, we have a Facebook, we have a Twitter, and an Instagram.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it's just Hear My Song for Facebook, though. So Facebook's the easiest to find us, and you can find all our links in there.
Terrific. Well, thank you so much. And let's definitely catch up offline and talk a little bit more about if there's something I can do to support you in your journey. And you know, I look forward to next year, and maybe next year I'll even be a part of it. So
I would be so happy. Yeah.
All right. Well,
in January.
Okay, I'll be around
in January.
I'm in Morristown at least a couple times a week. So,
all right, great.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks so much, Lauren, and we will talk soon.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.